With Beauden Barrett being a guy at the moment that is playing, I call it 60%. 60% of the stuff he does is great. 40% you're just thinking, my God, man, what are you doing? What are these kicks?
Yeah, too many chefs spoiling the broth, I thought, at the start of this coaching tenure. Maybe because Razor was so nervous that he thought, I'm going to coach by committee.
If we play like we played on Saturday, we will get beaten by Scotland for the first time in our history.
DSPN is brought to you by Novus Glass, proud partner of the Special Olympics New Zealand. The Special Olympics NZ National Summer Games is in Otutahi this December. Across Aotearoa, New Zealand, athletes, clubs, volunteers and families are getting ready, training, supporting each other and celebrating as the flame of hope travels down the country. Text Novus to 3598 to support our athletes. That's NOVUS to 3598 to support our incredible athletes at the Special Olympics in Otutahi, Christchurch this December. Notice it, Novus it.
Welcome to the DSPN.
He's given him. Wow, there you go. He was forwards.
Oh, a punch up now in midfield. Fraser's involved.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
DSPN, thank you so much for joining us. We've got a round table. Mark Watson, who stopped on the side of the road on the way to the Tron. John Day with us in the studio. Yes, we are talking about the Irish Test. Of course we're talking about that. There are so many talking points. We're building up to Scotland, the Grand Slam and everything else. I want to start, Watto, with you. And my initial reaction after that game, and we did a post-match, was I was just a fan full of frustration about how, the last 20 minutes were brilliant for the All Blacks, but the first 60 minutes we were just so muddled and confused, and the word clunky keeps coming up, and then I get all, are we improving? And then I've got this conflict going on about, hang on, it was last week all I was saying that the only thing that counts is winning, and I just wanted to win and get more points than them, and I didn't care how. And then here am I yelling and screaming about, yes, I do care how. So a couple of days later as it subsides and I reflect and I think, yeah, that last 20 minutes was magnificent. If we can build it like on that start like that. But how important is it to you, results over reality? Because we've had a lot of feedback about this and a lot of people are yelling at me saying, oh, look, you said that all you cared about was the win and now you're moaning and bitching because we had a win and we didn't play well enough. Do the results count more for you than the performance, or is it a delicate balance between the two? Because we are always looking holistically at the All Blacks.
Well, I think historically it was always a balance between the two. We wanted to win, but we wanted to win well. And I guess maybe because there was a greater expectation that we would win, and therefore we said, okay, well, we've won, we expected to win, but did we win well enough? And we still tended to focus a little bit more on the negative. I think in more recent times, because our success hasn't been as good, even going back through the Ian Foster time, we've now sort of reverted to just wanting to win. And I've got to say, the test against Ireland, I just really wanted us to win that one because I knew it was probably going to end up being ugly. I mean, both teams hadn't played a lot of rugby. And, coming off the back, I guess, of what historically Ireland have managed to do to us, I think the stat on the TV was they've won 5 out of the last 10 matches. It was just the win. But then it's funny, you do reflect, and then I think you do start to then include as part of your editorial the word but and however. And the reality is, the however is, if we play like we played on Saturday, we will get beaten by Scotland for the first time in our history. This Saturday, we will get beaten by England. If we played like that against South Africa, we would have got beaten by 60 points. And I guess the frustration is why we still put the but and the however in, is I just haven't seen any evolution in this team since the 3 tests in France at the start of the year. It's still clunky. It's still the same narrative. And I thought you summed it up really nicely yesterday. Are we winning through team cohesion, or are we actually winning through individual brilliance? And I still think it's coming down to individuals. I don't go into any test match at the moment confident. I am terrified that we're going to finish the year with our greatest ever loss in the history of the game, which came against South Africa in that second test, the first ever loss to Argentina in Argentina. And is this going to be the year that the first time Scotland beat us? It is a very, very good Scottish side. And we can look at it and go, well, that might only still equate to 3 test losses for the year. But I think you've then got to look at the magnitude of those losses, the meaning behind those, and the historical, moments that we don't want, that have been created by this, coaching staff.
Yeah, a lot in there, John. And when you do go back since 2019, where we haven't been the best team in the world, and England beat us in that semi-final, and there's a lot of unwanted records that have happened since then. Losing to Argentina at home, losing to Argentina away, losing to Ireland at home, losing a test series to Ireland.
Our confidence has been rocked as fans.
Yeah, a record ever defeat to South Africa. And so that's where I kind of find myself in the rock and the hard place, where I celebrate the win and I want the win. But at the same time, I do keep asking, are we getting better under the this coaching group, what progress can you definitively, concretely see? You know, we've had 24 tests now in charge. So you've got to put all of this into the same pot, I think. And look, I'm an All Black fan that always wants us to win. Don't get me wrong about that. But I'm also not an All Black fan that's sitting there going, rah the boys every time we play, because I hold this team to much greater standards than that. But
yeah, we want improvements, and we're playing the right way, I think, is a good place to start. You know, when we played that 2015 side, which I think all Blacks teams need to be compared to in the modern era, they played with really skillful forwards linking seamlessly with the backs. And I think that's what we're trying to do at the moment, but we just can't quite nail it for injury changes every game. And in that game especially, we had both Barretts gone in the first 20 minutes. So there's some cohesion going. You're trying to learn on the fly, but there's no excuses, obviously. And it took a wee while to bed in. And then we clicked in the last 20, which is the hallmark of a great All Blacks team.
It is, yeah.
That kicks away. Those are the teams in the 2010s that we revere and love. Like, that's what they kept on doing over and over again. So I think they are playing in the right way. They're just not nailing it. And Scott Robertson's yet to have a performance where you're like, oh, there he goes. That's the guy we believe in. It's a statement performance. And we haven't seen one yet. I think Ireland last year on the end-of-year tour is about as close as we've got to a full 80-minute performance. And he was close against France in France, which is really tough to win. But we're all waiting here still, aren't we? 24 tests in, waiting for this team to click. But there are some really good signs. I think 10 missed tackles in that game, which is a big improvement defensively. Scrum was massive. Bench impact.
No turnovers. They didn't get any turnovers of Hutch, which is an amazing stat. I didn't realise that until yesterday when I saw that, and I just thought, wow, what a stat that is.
But then you're all and however, this is an Ireland team on the decline, and Watto is exactly right. I think Scotland's a bigger threat than Ireland at the moment, and certainly England. Aren't they beating their chest at the moment because they beat the Wallabies? Well done. Well, we've done that a million times in a row. So looking forward to Twickenham. But Murrayfield, they're celebrating 100 years at Murrayfield this weekend, and they asked for the All Blacks to come. Like, this is big. This is a huge test, and we better be ready because it's not an ambush. We know that Scotland's a team on the improve, and the All Blacks need to get it right from the opening whistle, not the last 20.
Mark, I don't have any fears about Scotland, and maybe this is just because I'm an old man and we've never lost to them, but I have fears about the All Blacks losing almost every game. I'm a bit like you. I don't go in with confidence until I see us play an 80-minute cohesive performance. And there are bits and pieces. I keep saying this. I keep repeating myself. There are bits and pieces from every game that we played this year that if you could jigsaw together, you'd be going, now I get it. But it's just trying to get all of that done in 180 minutes, balancing that out with, at the end of this, a Grand Slam is a Grand Slam is a Grand Slam. And if we finish with 4 wins, 2 against Australia, 4 on the trot after that, we're going to go, okay, that's a pretty good way to finish the year after getting belted by South Africa. It doesn't put that to bed, but it's the only way we can finish the year, and it would be a nice upward trajectory to finish on.
Yeah, look, I agree. I think if we go through this end of the year tour, I think you can look at the season and say it is successful. Does that still believe that we've got the right coaches in place? I think it just says that we've still got player depth, we've still got individual brilliance, we've still got the best cattle probably in the world when it comes to rugby talent. Maybe not the biggest, but I still think we've got the most skillful. Look, I said it last week, and I'm happy to say it again, and I'm not just doing this to try and grab a headline, but I'd actually make the coaching changes now. I got it wrong. I was a Scott Robertson fan, but I just don't believe that these guys have got it right. I think that Tony Brown, we should be doing everything to get him back. And if we are going to keep Scott Robertson, we just need to be moving heaven and earth to get Tony Brown back. But look, I'm probably a Jamie Joseph fan now, and I think that combination is probably a better way going forward. I don't buy into this 4-year cycle. As I was explaining to you, Martin, I think off the air yesterday, if you go into this 4-year cycle, you look at Rugby World Cups, there's been 10 of them. We've won 3. That's a 30% winning record.
It's not great.
I'm not sure that the 4-year cycle, there's enough evidence to suggest that that is the model going forward. I do. We're just so nervy, aren't we? And you can see that obviously Scott Robertson's nervy. Look how conservative his end of the year selections were. He took no young talent, didn't take a Rivers Rayhana to maybe blood in. Yes, they're part of the New Zealand A and they can drag them across. But he is now in that mindset, I just want to win. And I think in the past, it has always been about, I just want to win, but I want to win well. Yeah, I mean, if we were to lose to Scotland next week, I think the knives are out, even England the following week. But if we can get through both games, I think it's a successful season. But is it a successful season to suggest that we're going to go to South Africa and beat South Africa in South Africa next year? Probably not.
Okay, again, a lot to unpack. I want to get on to the selections for Friday as well, because we've got a big debate about first five, about midfield, we've got 2 new locks as well. I'm not with you on this. I don't want to change the coaching, the head coach before the World Cup. John, I think he's got a 4-year deal. I want him to be in place for those 4 years. I can see adding pieces around him, though. I agree with Mark on that, because this is what Fozzie did as well. He got rid of a couple and he bought... Well, Jason Ryan has been spectacular since he's come in. You can really see what he's done. I look at the rest of the coaches, though, and every time we go out and we are clunky, that's who I'm not pointing so much at the players. I'm looking at them going, you're giving these guys the tools to go out there and play. Whatever the game plan is it too complex? Is it too complicated? How are you training? How are you preparing? How can we play 9 tests and still not be safe under the high ball? How much, like these kind of things. Surely that comes back to the way that this team is being prepared and those people that are doing that.
Yeah, too many chefs spoiling the broth, I thought, at the start of this coaching tenure. Maybe because Razor was so nervous that he thought, I'm going to coach by committee and bring in 5 guys and you're going to select the back 3, you're going to select the midfield, you're in charge of the inside backs, I'll do the loose forwards and you do the tight 5. It's like there's too many voices telling too many separate groups what to do, and I think...
And we're hearing this actually from inside camp as well, people. I must say, I haven't brought that up before, but we're actually hearing a bit of this as well. So I don't know whether to believe all of it, but keep going.
Yeah, and Jason Holland, I'm not sure you even need to replace him. You got Tamati Ellison in there. He's good. I'd love to bring Tony Brown back, absolutely, but I think he's joined at the hip with Jamie Joseph, and unless he's head coach, I don't see Tony Brown giving up on South Africa before the World Cup. So I just think the less voices, the better, and more Scott Robertson takes over this team and makes it his team, the better for him as well. And I just think, like Watto's right, he was nervous, wasn't himself for that first year and the start of this year as well, in front of the media. You've talked to him
a lot, yeah.
Marty, and you just get the feeling like he's easing into it. Like he seems quite jovial on this end of year tour, being on a couple of video calls and watching some press conferences, and he just needs to make it his team. And he's unearthed a lot of talent in the last couple of years. We can say he's conservative with his selections, but you go through this side and there's plenty of guys who weren't around 2 years ago. Leroy Carter, Wallace Satiti, even a Josh Lord, who none of us would have picked for the end of year tour. Like, he played well for 77 minutes last week. So he is going out on the limb with a few selections and getting a lot of them right, I reckon.
Let's look at that midfield to start with, Watto, on Friday, and it has to be Tupaia and Leicester at 12 and 13, doesn't it? I'd be gobsmacked if it's anything else, and I think that, I've got a lot of time for Geordie Barrett, and I think Geordie Barrett has to have a place in that team. But sometimes this happens in sport, where an injury happens and all of a sudden somebody comes into the side and that person ends up becoming the guy. This is going to be fascinating if these two get the chance to play at 12 and 13 together. Quinn's natural position. And Leicester, who every time I see him play for the All Blacks, he brings something, doesn't he? He's a big, powerful guy who just, his instincts seem to be right. He attracts guys to him. He just seems to be able to find gaps that Billy Proctor wasn't finding. And I don't know whether that's circumstantial or whatever, but I really rate these two and I'd like to see them get a chance to start.
Yeah, like I say, I think that picking up on John's point, I think it has been sort of still conservative selections. It's been injury that has provided these other players to be given that opportunity. And as you say, sometimes you find the formula by default.
Yeah, that's okay.
Delighted if we see Quinn Tupaia at second 5'8", Leicester Whanganuku at centre. I mean, he is a guy who just seems to be able to break tackles, hold up in the tackle, get the offload, a little bit like Sonny Bill Williams. He seems to make things happen, appears to be very, very good on defence as well. But I think it's really important coming up against Scotland and England that we show them something different on attack. For a long time it has been Geordie Barrett, Rieko Ioane. It's been Geordie Barrett at second 5'8", and that hasn't really been that effective. Now, you're Scotland, you're thinking, hey, what's this All Black midfield going to show us? Well, we don't really know because we really haven't seen them in combination. There's not a lot of historical data on them.
Yeah, you're right.
And so, look, I think that is the obvious choice. Just going back to Leroy Carter, I think he's a good footballer. I think he's a busy footballer, but I don't think he's a guy who's going to break a test match open. I think he's a little over-embellished. I just think he's a good, solid footballer. But there's no Jeff Wilson about him. There's no sort of Dougie Howlett about him yet. And also Will Jordan. I mean, I was having this conversation, I think, and maybe it's to do with the coaching group, maybe it's the style of play, but I think Will Jordan's been a little underwhelming too. Everyone talks about him as Christian Cullen and all these types of players. Well, I don't think he's Ben Smith. I don't think he's Israel Dag. I don't think he's lived up to that billing yet. And again, I think you've got to put that maybe down to, as John mentioned earlier, maybe some of the mixed messages. So they will all start, but I guess, I might be being a bit harsh on those two players I've just mentioned, Leroy Carter and Will Jordan. But I mean, the area that has been obviously the biggest and most noticeable concern for us has been the midfield. And I think maybe, just maybe, we have found that formula by default now.
I also think that when you look at the way that we play, it's most glaring when the backline makes mistakes, isn't it? And there was we got possession, winning lineouts and things, and it just seemed like the first pass was just flung, and then we're going backwards, and guys not sticking, or guys being slightly ahead of where they should be to receive a pass, those kind of things in the backline. And when you look at these players, and you saw in the last 20 minutes how individually brilliant they actually are, that this is what I mean, more towards the coaches perhaps than those guys wearing the jerseys, because we all know how individually good they can be. The long-winded question is, when you see Mackenzie come off the bench like that, get a chance in broken play, heads up play, there's a break made, he's right there. And I was screaming at the TV, inside ball for that, and he did it. It was perfect, wasn't it? That's exactly what you want from him. But with Beauden Barrett being a guy at the moment that is playing, I call it 60%. 60% of the stuff he does is great. 40% you're just thinking, my God, man, what are you doing? What are these kicks? Why did you try a banana kick in a test match against Ireland? Save that for the beach. So do we replace him at first five, or do you think Damien stays coming off the bench as his best role?
Damien's got to be 23. Absolutely. I think this year we've seen nothing from Damien McKenzie to be like, you can be in charge of the All Blacks in a big test match.
A lot of people will disagree on the comments. Okay, you're going to wear it.
Super Rugby final. How did Damien McKenzie go? He was awful. He was. He played so well all season and does during the round robin, but come a big game that's got something on the line, I haven't seen him in a 10 jersey dominate.
Stats saying that he's got the best stats of any first five against the top five teams in the world.
Yep. Okay, stats don't tell the whole story, I'd suggest. Beauden Barrett is the safe pair of hands, even though he's missed touch twice from penalties, which is a cardinal schoolboy error.
Yeah.
But I've got way more trust in Beauden Barrett to get us around the park than I do in Damien McKenzie. And also, I love Damien McKenzie off the bench. I just think he fulfills that role so well. So I don't think there's really a debate to be had at the moment about the 10 jersey.
What do you think, Watto?
Yeah, look, I'm probably on the side of John here. I mean, I think there are some real frustrations with Beauden Barrett. I mean, just not finding touch. That's their basic fundamentals. If you're Black number 10, they're just things you expected to get right. And he's 34, 35 years of age, plenty of test matches behind him. He has to be better. And they're just the basics that we need to get done. I mean, I guess for me, I look at the Barrett brothers generally, and, they're a common denominator that sit in this All Black team. We've had a lot of losses, and I'm still not convinced that, again, the reputations that are bestowed upon them currently are honest. I think there are flaws in all of their games at the moment. But Damien McKenzie, I think he is the guy you want to bring off the bench because the style of rugby that he does play, I think he can lead an All Black team around the park, but I actually think he's just better suited coming off the bench. Okay. But, you do sit there and you go, where's Ruben Love in the mix? Why don't we potentially give Ruben Love a bit of a crack here? But this comes back to, again, the nervousness and just how skittery, I guess, Scott Robertson is at the moment. He knows he had a bit of an average year last year. He's had a record loss to South Africa, a first-time loss to Argentina. And sometimes I think you've got to take a little bit of a chance, but he's not going to do that.
But is this the tour to do that?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what if Ruben Love comes on and we lose to Scotland for the first time ever, and we all pile on and go, well, Ruben Love missed a kick, Ruben Love missed touch, Ruben Love's the reason why we lost this test.
Having said that, look, I'll throw some names at you, and we talk about World Cup year. Okay, everyone's obsessed with World Cup year. How about this? In 1995, a guy called Mertens and a guy called Kronfeld debuted for the All Blacks at the World Cup. Okay, I think they had a test against Canada to start with, right? In 1987, Michael Jones and John Kirwan came out of nowhere. In 2015, Nehi Milner-Skudder came out of nowhere and played. The All Blacks have this history of unearthing guys. They don't have to be unearthed 2 years out. That's the thing. You don't... Look, and also, here's another stat for you. When we go away to World Cups, our winning record is 12.5%. We've won 1 in 8 away from home. So it's a hell of a lot to put all your eggs in that basket saying, oh, it's all about 2027 in Australia. We've won 1 time out of our country. We've won 2 of them at home, remember? It's going to be 12 years between World Cups by the time we get there. You know, I don't get this. I don't buy into this. Oh, my God, the guy's got to be blooded 2 years beforehand.
Yeah.
Ruben Love could be a guy that continues on the path that he's on, and in a year's time might be a hell of a bit better player. Maybe that's the right time
Israel
to do it.
Dag 2011 as
There
well.
goes another one. He wasn't actually...
Mills was a Centurion fullback. He wasn't going anywhere.
Look, and that bomb squad didn't appear until just before the
Kahui,
World Cup.
Jane and Dag
There
being
you
the
go.
back 3 at that
So-
World Cup is ridiculous.
So, yeah, Watto, this is the quandary, isn't it? Do we blood these guys now? Do you look at that Wales test and go, okay, if we got 3 in the bank, maybe that's a time.
Yep.
But if we got 3 in the bank, I want a smackdown in that game, and I want to get that Grand Slam.
Yep.
So I'm not, I just...
Okay, but
You got a New
talked
Zealand
about
15 3 matches for him to play, isn't it? Isn't that where the experiment's meant to happen?
yeah, no, but you look at it and go, if you're going to pick guys in your All Black squad, you pick them because they believe they're good enough and they're ready to go if they need to step up. And that's always got to be the culture and environment in that place. You can't pick them and then have a bit of an asterisk next to them and a hesitation. Who was your first 5 in the record loss against South Africa? Who was your first 5 in the first ever defeat to Argentina and Argentina? You go back and have a look. Why are we so jittery? Who are the marquee players? You know, in rugby league, they talk about the spine. Well, there's a similar group of players within key positions within rugby that are the same. And all I'm saying is that, you know, and you talk about a Wallace Atiti breakout season last year. We didn't play the whole experience. He was given an opportunity and took it with both hands. And I just wonder whether we do at times need to look differently. We've got to show our opposition different things on attack.
I agree with
different
that.
bodies, different styles. And I just think that Beauden Barrett's become is too predictable. And there are just too many errors in his game for an All Black first 5'8". I'm not sure why there's such a hesitation around Ruben Love and such an endorsement of the Barretts and the Barrett brothers when you look at the number of losses in recent years.
Yeah, Ruben Love just hasn't played a lot of 10, not enough 10 for me. He's a fullback converted to 10 because the Hurricanes were battling in that position this year. Played pretty well, but I don't think he's like Test rugby, Watto. You got to admit it is a massive step up from Super Rugby. So to learn your trade in the 10 jersey at Murrayfield in a cauldron in the 100th year celebration of Scottish rugby there, it's not the time to test him.
Look,
It's really
Super Rugby 10 years ago, I would say would have been an effective place to test whether you're an All Black or not. Super Rugby today is not.
No.
Because Super Rugby today affords you a hell of a lot of space, a hell of a lot of time.
Chuck the ball around in the summertime.
Yeah,
Have a
who was
hoon.
it? Satutu. You know, it came up on Instagram yesterday doing this flick behind the back pass, which is wonderful to look at, and it's great beach cricket, but it's not test match rugby when you're playing in these kind of matches. So,
But if Damian McKenzie gets injured during the week and Ruben Love turns up on the bench and it just happens that way, well, let's go and back the boy. But
I think the points that you're both bringing up come back to that thing about the coaches, isn't it? As to who's in charge, who's making the decisions. Are there too many voices making these decisions? I'm with you on the fact that I want to feel like Scott Robertson is Alex Ferguson. He's making all the decisions here. You can train the team and you can do this, but ultimately it comes down to me. I select the side and I'm in charge and it's my brand of rugby. That's how I imagined and I was always assumed that he played or he figured with the Crusaders, Watto. That's why he won 7 titles. He didn't have 12 guys in front of him with the Crusaders, did he? So I'm with you both on this. I would like to see him. I'd like to see more of what I think is him in charge of the team. And perhaps that might alleviate a bit of the confusion and a bit of the clunkiness. I don't know.
Yeah, look, I'm not a believer in Scott Hansen. I've got a different point of view too on Jason Ryan. I've seen an All Black forward pack go backwards like I've never seen it go backwards this year. I think
Scrum was good on the weekend.
Really inconsistent. Yeah, scrum good on the weekend, but you taking an Irish team that haven't played forever, their first game of the season, they run out of steam. I think they are past their best. I mean, we got absolutely monstered by South Africa. I think we held parity with Australia, but the Australians again, I mean, you know, I think everybody's talking them up a little bit more than where they've actually come. Yes, there's been an improvement from them, but they're not the Australian team of yesteryear. I remember us playing Japan a couple of years ago and looking at the Japanese scrum and how good that was. And then I realised it was Owen Franks who was actually involved in the Japanese setup there. And I just wonder whether it's a guy like an Owen Franks you bring back. Is he the next Mike Cron? And we can go back and say...
Biggest mistake ever not taking him in 2019.
It's Scott Robertson who put those guys in place, mate. He's the guy that put those guys in place.
Yep.
And again, I wanted him as coach. I didn't want I didn't want the 6 others in the background as a coach. I want him to be my coach.
Well, isn't it interesting how they have to come into this job? Sorry to cut you off, Watto, but like the All Blacks get chosen the best players are in the best positions. But for coaching, you have to come in with your little team.
Yeah.
And then you get selected as your little team together. But shouldn't it be you're the best head coach, you're the best backs coach, you're the best forwards coach, open up the Silver Lake checkbook and just sign these guys. Like, I guess I get the loyalty Tony Brown has to Jamie Joseph, but chuck an extra 0 at his check and wouldn't he have joined
Jason Ryan
Scott
left Scott Robertson to join Ian Foster, remember?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So you just want the best guys in the role, and I don't think New Zealand Rugby has the interview process for the head coaching role that comes around every 4 years that does that. You know?
All right, let's finish on a couple of things. Isn't it great to have rugby on a Sunday morning?
Oh, it's the best.
It's the best time to watch a test match, isn't it, on a Sunday morning at 9 o'clock? I like that. Isn't it fantastic that we've got another 3 weekends, and then it doesn't even finish after that because Wales play the Box on the very final weekend. But we've also got France, South Africa this weekend. You know, we get us against England at the same time that Ireland play Aussie. And, you know, so we've got 3 or 4 weeks ahead of us here with international rugby on a plate every Sunday. How good?
Oh, brilliant. I still say it. I mean, I love all sport, Martin, you know that. But I still reckon when it comes to good test rugby involving the All Blacks, there's still nothing better in terms of just getting me on the edge of my seat, getting all the emotions going, the frustration, the elation, the intensity. It's just wonderful. And I think it all just goes back to us. And I'm not sure whether today's generation do it, but I think it all just comes back to waking up with Dad in the morning. I remember, you know, waking up and watching the All Blacks play Wales and Graham Murray scoring a try in the corner.
1980 it was.
You know, I remember names like Phil Bennett and all of those sorts of wonderful names and listening to, you know, the great English and Scottish commentators, Bruce McLaren
Bill
and stuff
McLaren,
over the years. And I just think that sort of sense of nostalgia, there is just still something about those Northern Hemisphere games which just bring, just bring a romance out for me.
They do. Yeah, you're right.
They certainly do. 4:10 this weekend, fellas.
Yeah,
so a little bit more
that's
testing.
a romantic time, isn't it?
9:10.
Yeah, you're going to be getting a bit of this at 4:10. It's going to have to be quietly creep up out of the thing, go into the lounge. And...
I must say, I was out of my seat fist pumping when we finally kicked away against Ireland. Watto's right, the edge of your seat sort of stuff, you know, and we're up there, we're on tour, you know, it gets you the real nationalism going in you.
Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, people, please leave us a comment and everything. Look, when Damien McKenzie threw that inside ball, I was roaring, I was screaming at that stage.
Man.
It was just...
We scored some ripper tries.
We did, and we came, and if you... The age-old adage, if you're only as good as your last game, well, if we're only as good as that last 20 minutes, we're pretty bloody good. But what we've got to do is we've got to start like we mean to play in that last 20 minutes.
We just want a full 80 statement performance, don't we?
Yeah, just there. And
that's all.
That's all. The perfect game is what we want, isn't it? Yeah. Drive carefully, mate.
Look, I'm happy to scrape. I'm happy to scrape past Scotland. I want the perfect game against England.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Yeah. Grand Slam on, lads. A huge thank you to Novus Glass for sponsoring this episode of the DSPN and for being a proud partner of the Special Olympics NZ. This December, over 1,200 incredible athletes along with hundreds of volunteers, coaches and other support staff will be making their way to Christchurch for the Special Olympics NZ 2025 National Summer Games. Novus Glass is proud to be supporting something special, and you can help too by supporting the athletes if you text Novus to 3598. That's NOVUS 3598. Thanks again, Novus Glass, for supporting the DSPN. Windscreen crack or chip? Notice it. Novus it.
DSPN.